Welcome into the Sportsmemo podcast, NFL edition, the divisional round with our NFL expert handicapper, Teddy Covers. Teddy, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing great, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Not as good as you. I'll tell you what, 8-1 run. You're heating up. Not to mention NFL full season every play, 64% on the year. So you got to give me some of this luck or knowledge, whatever you got in your corner, man.
Yeah, it's been a good start to 2018. I think we're at 68% across all sports through the first 10 days, and obviously 8-1 over the last few days. 3-0 sweep last night. So it's been a nice little run to start the year. Actually, it started on New Year's Eve. We won on New Year's Eve too. But it's been a real good NFL season, start to finish. From week one. Swept in week one, and it just kept going. And when I'm at 69% with my sides, dating back to week one, and 64% overall, I got no complaints in that regard. But all that stuff's rear view mirror, man. We got 4 games on tap for this weekend. Let's see if we can give you some good information that you can use to make some profitable wagers.
And Teddy has his 5% game of the week up tonight in college basketball, so you can check that out on the front of sportsmemo.com. First play up there. He's on an 8-1, 89% all sports streak since Sunday. So ride the hot handicapper here. He also has a 4% NFL game of the week going this weekend. And with the podcast coupon code NFL9 at checkout, you can get that play for just $9 using the coupon code NFL9 for his 4% NFL game of the week going this weekend on sportsmemo.com. Teddy, we got the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast. There's only 4 games, so we'll go through them pretty quick here. We got Indianapolis at Kansas City, 57 the total. Looks like the Chiefs laying 5.5 in Arrowhead.
Yeah, fascinating game. It really is. And, we've seen a little bit of Indy money. We've seen a fair bit of over money. Certainly early on, the wise guys were pounding the over. Now we're seeing signs that stopped at 57, and we're seeing, in fact, signs that it may well come down off of 57 back down to 56.5 in that regard. Certainly when we talk about the Indianapolis Colts, they haven't been an over team this season. They're 6-2 to the under their last 8 ball games. And, one of the 2 games that they cashed over tickets, they had to rally from behind, and the offense got going late. The other is the finale at Tennessee, where, there was some garbage time scoring in that ball game after it had basically already been decided. That helped cash an over ticket. But Indy's been a fairly strong under team, and a big part of that's how good their defense was down the stretch. The reason Matt Eberflus is getting interviews for head coaching positions, this was a Colts defense that was not well regarded coming into the season, and yet they played like a good defense, I'm not going to call it elite defense. They're not the Ravens in that regard. They're not the Vikings or the Bears or whatever type of teams that you say hang their mantle on the defense side of the football. But Indy defensively, rock solid against the run, rock solid against the pass. In fact, you look at the Colts, 3.9 yards allowed against the run. In case KC, 5 yards allowed per carry. One well above average, one well below average. That's certainly a factor that works in Indy's favor, especially with the way that Marlon Mack has been able to run the football both in the regular season and here in the postseason. You have Andrew Luck, the QB with experience in the postseason with winning experience in the postseason for Indy. And, you look at the Colts, 10-1 in their last 11 ball games, including knocking off multiple playoff teams during that span. Indy deserves to have a big betting bandwagon right about now. And Colts, I'm not convinced they correlate with over, even with Andrew Luck. I think Colts in general correlate with under because they're winning every bit as much of their defense as their offense, and they're trying to run the football, burn clock, not just Andrew Luck throwing the ball downfield. However, Indy's best weapon, their prime downfield threat, T.Y. Hilton, he's got a bum ankle, and look, he's listed as probable. He's supposed to go. Eric Ebron's probable. He's supposed to go. I'm not convinced that either guy is going to be at or near 100%. T.Y. Hilton means everything for Indy. And, again, this has been a year where the first-time starters at QB, 0-3 against the spread last week. Here's Patrick Mahomes getting his first postseason start. And Mahomes has been the exception to every rule in the NFL this season. He has. But when you think about Andy Reid's track record, and you think about the struggles of QBs making their first postseason start, both this year and in seasons past, and when you look at Kansas City's issues defensively, boy, there's really a case to be made here for the Indianapolis Colts. All that being said, from a strength of schedule standpoint, Indy faced one of the weakest schedules in the NFL. That wasn't the case for KC. Certainly, when you think about Andy Reid's postseason experience and all these failures, he's won 11 playoff games. It's not like he's never won a playoff game, and it's not like KC hasn't won playoff games since he was there. They beat the Texans 30-0 a couple of years ago, and defensively, it's a Chiefs team. Again, their season-long numbers are dismal. You just look at KC down the stretch. You look at the pass rush. That defense has gotten better. I think the season-long stats do not tell the true story of Kansas City on the defensive side of the football. I think they're better than their numbers would show. So at 57, I'm not shocked that we're seeing some under money start to come in. And at 5.5, I don't see this line moving anywhere. And frankly, you can make a legitimate case for both of these two teams. Fascinating game, one I can't wait to watch. But as of this time, I got no wager on it, Drew. And frankly, I'm not even that close.
Teddy, we got 303, 304 up next. My favorite time slot, the Saturday night game, Dallas at the LA Rams, 49.5 the total. Looks like the Rams 7 with juice, depending where you're shopping, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, the history of these Saturday night divisional round matchups has been a history of upsets over the years. And obviously in a postseason, the last two postseasons, Dogs 14-1 against the spread. The only team to cover New England last year in the divisional round against Tennessee. So, it's been all Dogs all the time over the last 2 years in the NFL postseason. And Dallas, obviously, with a game under their belt. And the Rams last year, I mean, how do we describe their playoff performance? Crashed and burned. They weren't any good against Atlanta. They were home favorites in that ballgame. They lost by double digits. They were never in it. Jared Goff was off. And it's not like Goff had his best performances against the better defenses that he faced. He lit up a lot of bad defenses, but the Rams were not a great point spread team. After their 3-0 start, they were consistent money losers, and Goff was overrated, and the offense didn't necessarily work the way that it had earlier in the campaign. Now, Gurley says he's going to be good to go for LA, but he's not convinced he's going to be anywhere near 100%. That being said, they signed C.J. Anderson off the waiver wire. He ran for 160 yards behind that offensive line, obviously. It's a Cowboys team that hasn't lost a lot of games by margin this season. They've been tough in the road dog role. They haven't necessarily been winning those games all season in straight-up fashion, but they certainly haven't been blown off the field on a regular basis by any stretch of the imagination. They lose by 3 at Houston. They lose by 3 at Washington. They beat Philly on the highway. They beat Atlanta on the highway. They had the one bad game at Indy, which was the mother of all flat spots. They're coming off Redskins, Saints, and Eagles. Now you got to and they clinched the division, and then now you got to go to Indy. It was a flat spot. You throw that game out. Other than that, there weren't a lot of bad losses by margin for Dallas this season. Certainly defensively, the numbers show that this Cowboys squad on a yards per play basis for the season, 5.4 yards per play. That's better than the league average and significantly better than the LA Rams, who allowed 6 yards per play for the season, 5.1 yards per carry. Zeke Elliott runs the football in this game. Dallas is live to win, let alone cover. And in my mind, that's the crux of this handicap. Dak Prescott is not going, and especially the Cowboys receiving corps is all banged up. Prescott's not going to lead the Cowboys to victory without the benefit of Zeke Elliott in the running game, and a big game from Zeke Elliott. But if they're grinding out clock on the ground, if they're grinding out first downs on the ground, that'll set up the play action. That'll keep Goff and company off the field, and it'll give the Cowboys a realistic chance to win the game, not just cover the point spread. So, everyone loves McVay right now. Find us the next McVay. McVay and Goff crashed and burned in the postseason last year. Their opportunity for redemption, perhaps an extra time to prepare. The Rams been pretty good with extra time to prepare this season. And again, they came off their bye week and played a pretty crappy game at Detroit. I know they got the win and cover in that contest. They were not in sync in that ballgame. And make no mistake about it, the Cowboys will have ample crowd support in L.A. on Saturday night.
Teddy, you bring up 14-1 on Saturday night. The underdog is. Do you think there's something to that to that record as far as?
No, it's not on Saturday night. It's for since the start of the NFL playoffs in last year's playoffs. There's 11 playoff games every year. That's what we have. For the first week, for the second week, then 2 championship games, then the Super Bowl. Last year, Dogs 10-1 in those 11 ball games. This year, in the wild card round, at the closing number, Dogs 4-0. Now, there was obviously, if you bet Dallas early, as we advised the clients to do, you're able to cash a ticket with the Cowboys. But at the closing number, Dogs went 4-0 again last week, coupled with the 10-1 run for the Dogs last year. That's 14-1 underdogs last 15 tries.
Boom. Thanks for clearing that up. That's a heck of a stat there. On to the Sunday slate. We got 305, 306. LA Chargers at the New England Patriots. 47 the total. Looks like Pats -4 in Foxborough.
So, had to be week 16. Week 15. I think it was after the loss of Pittsburgh. After the loss of Pittsburgh, I said, I want to bet against the Patriots every game the rest of the year. I don't think this team's any good. They just don't look right. They don't feel right. The last 2 games, they played the Bills and the Jets. I went 1-1 fading the Patriots in those ball games. And I was lucky to get the one. The Bills were not the right side in New England. I got a backdoor cover with seconds left in a game that, was on the one hand that I didn't deserve. On the other hand, New England didn't do anything. And in the finale against the Jets, again, they blew them off the field. The Jets didn't show. I'm not convinced New England is right. I'm not convinced that Tom Brady's Brady hasn't looked like himself. Gronk hasn't looked like himself. The offense as a whole hasn't looked like himself. It's a team that wants to run the football right now. And is that an effective method against L.A.? I don't know that it's going to be real easy to run the ball down the Chargers' throat. The Ravens tried to do that last week. Didn't work all that well. Defensively, this has been a very mediocre team against good offense. You look at the good offenses that the Patriots have faced, and they've had trouble in those balls. You look at the teams that are physical at the line of scrimmage. Those are the teams the Patriots have had trouble with this season. I'm not sold on New England. I'm really not. All that being said, man, that track record, it's so hard to step in front of it. 12-3 against the spread in this round with the Belichick, and you have the Chargers coming off a tough, hard-fought win in L.A. and complaining about the time and complaining about the travel spot. And, it's a Chargers team that's been at Pittsburgh and at KC and at Denver and then last week at Baltimore and this week at New England. That's in the last, that's 5 road games in 7 weeks and all of them involving time changes. That's a lot of travel and then you have, do I want Lynn and Rivers against Brady and Belichick? I mean, people tell me I was shooting a video yesterday over in the studio. You can always see the videos at Sportsmemo and over at Wager Talk. Shooting a video about this ball game, and we're talking. It's about Rivers. How good is Rivers? And I'm like, no, Phillip Rivers. He has a reputation of he's a good quarterback. I don't look at Rivers as a Hall of Famer. I continue to see him as a guy that chucks balls up into coverage in dicey spots. They dominated the Ravens last week, dominated that game, and there they were in the fourth quarter, blowing the lead, game on the line. Rivers on the sideline because he couldn't get a first down again, and the defense was lucky to get a pick and save the victory. But it wasn't one of those. It's every doubt you had about the Chargers. And here come the special teams woes. This year the kicking problems are solved. Yeah. Will they miss an extra point in this ballgame or a field goal? It's something the Chargers as an organization, for whatever reason, have tended to do. You grade out the personnel here. It's not close. The Chargers at +4 is a clear value play. But it's not just personnel. And that, it's not just personnel at all. Certainly when it comes to the B&B, and extra time to prepare in New England and travel spots and all of that. So tough game for me. I'm not getting involved with it.
All right, Teddy, we got one game left. And guys, remember Teddy's 4% NFL Game of the Week. You can get it for just $9 using the coupon code NFL9 at checkout on sportsmemo.com. If you're listening to this on Thursday, which is when we're recording it, he's got a 5% play up in college basketball. Check that out at sportsmemo.com there on the front page. Teddy, last game up, afternoon game on Sunday, Philadelphia at New Orleans. 51 the total. Saints laying 8 or 8.5, depending where you're shopping in the Big Easy.
Sure, and obviously people are going to talk a lot about the first meeting, 48-7. It wasn't that close. I mean, that game was over pretty early. And of course, I was with Carson Wentz at QB. It was in a difficult spot for the Eagles. They were off Dallas. They had the Giants up next, divisional sandwich. And they blow that game to Dallas, and where they lost at home by a TD, and they had cluster injuries in the secondary, and it was pretty ugly. And in fact, it's the only loss they had like that all season. You look at Philly's other losses; they lose by 3, by 6, by 2 against Minnesota, by a touchdown to the Cowboys, by 6 in the rematch against the Cowboys. So it's not like they had a history of dismal no-show games. This was one, the only one that they had all year, certainly one that they will remember. And of course, you have the Nick Foles factor. You know that Nick Foles has the all-time best QB rating in the postseason of any quarterback in NFL history at 105.2 or something.
I didn't know that, but I mean, yeah. If he keeps winning games, Teddy, the question's got to come. Like, are they going to turn to him as their starting quarterback? I would think.
He's got to win this one first. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
They could, and Wentz is the guy they've invested in. And again, I mean, it's an Eagles team. Obviously, the postseason track record from last year, tremendous. It's also an Eagles team when you look at spots: at Dallas, at the Rams, home to Houston, at Washington, at Chicago, now at New Orleans. Yeah, that's 5 road games in 6 weeks without a bye. And Drew Brees is not Mitch Trubisky. But of course, it's a Saints team. Everyone's talking about, the Saints haven't lost at home in the postseason in the Sean Payton era. Yeah, but have they covered point spreads? New Orleans, another rhythm offense. Remember them back in week 1 against Tampa Bay? They looked completely out of sync. People probably don't remember. They got the win and cover at Baltimore after their bye. That was the game that Brees, did he throw for 100 yards? They were extraordinarily fortuitous to get they were not the right side in that ball game. And we've seen that off buys in years past. Look at the recent, the postseason last year, at home against Carolina. They're laying a touchdown. What do they win by? 5? They play Philly. The last time they were in the postseason before that, 2-point victory. We're not seeing these blowout. Last time they had a blowout win in the playoffs was 2011. So it's not like the Saints have, with the bye and at home and all that, you have to bet New Orleans. All that being said, I watched the first meeting. Hard to get that out of your head. There was a class difference in that ball game between the Saints passing game and the Eagles secondary. Philly's gotten healthier defensively since then, and their offense, with Foles and Sproles, a heck of a lot better than it was a couple of weeks ago. And from a confidence standpoint, here's a team that's dominating the postseason. They refused to lose in the game against the Rams, and they refused to lose in the game against the Texans. And again, last week, another refused to lose ball game. The markets certainly aren't giving Philly full respect. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not surprised at all that we've seen the Eagles look like a fairly popular public play this week. They're the defending Super Bowl champs, and they've been winning games and covering numbers, whereas the Saints, really, you go back, and remember, they had that 43-point game against Washington, and they scored 30 at Mini, and 45 against the Rams, and 51 against Cincy, and then 48 against Philly. Since that time, I guess they had the game against Atlanta on Thanksgiving that they were lucky to cover because the Falcons kept turning it over in the red zone. Since that time, the offense scored 10, 28, 12, 31, and 14. They have not been lighting up the scoreboard. And this is a game, if they're going to cover, they better light up the scoreboard. I do think New Orleans correlates with over in this ballgame.
Great stuff as always. You can check out his 4% NFL game of the week at sportsmemo.com. Going this weekend, you can get it for just $9 with the coupon code NFL9 at checkout. Teddy, anything else you want to throw out to the listeners before we shut this down?
Throw something out? Let's throw out the garbage. No. Hey, thanks for listening. Enjoy the games. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you again next time, right here on the Sports Memo Podcast. Check it out every weekday at sportsmemo.com.
Boom, Teddy. Nice outro. Love it. And we will be back tomorrow with Brent Crow breaking down college basketball Friday night in the Saturday look-ahead lines. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be talking to you tomorrow.